Hello, welcome to the next session of Marketing Management 1. We will continue our discussion on market segmentation and targeting. So, to pick it up from where I ended yesterday, a good market segmentation should satisfy the conditions that are there on the screen in front of you. These are the criteria for satisfaction, 6 of them, which normally should be clear for good segmentation. First of all, as we have discussed, that the segment must be differentiated. It must be clear why and how that particular market segment should be treated differently from other segments. Obviously, only if it is identifiable, then this whole question of differentiated thing comes, and then there can be a differentiated and identified segment, but unless it is accessible to us, then it is not of much importance for our marketing strategy. So, the accessibility is also a very important point. It should be of a good size, so that it can be mined for a sufficient length of time. So, the segment should last as a segment for foreseeable future. And then of course, good segmentation means we have to have knowledge about that segment. We have to have some kind of investigation already done for that segment. So, we should be able to measure it, we should be able to say, it consists of how many potential units of sale, how many potential number of consumers over a certain period of time, and then that definition should hold true for some time, stable. This particular idea about stability is under a lot of challenge these days, because different types of market segments are getting overlapped over time. So, a market segment which is for a mobile phone gets overlapped with a market segment for a music consumer or for video content consumer, and therefore, the stability has to be now treated as a dynamic stability. That means, the definition of stability will not be static. We have to embrace different changes that are coming in. So, the same segment can actually now represent the segmentation for a couple of more products or services, and one has to look at different types of fusion. So, for example, as I promised yesterday, I will look at some examples today or small caselets. Let us look at this as a market segment at petrol pumps. Now, petrol pumps in India have operated almost like ration shops for last so many decades, because the customer did not really have choice. The competition was among the public sector companies. So, ultimately they were all government owned, and they also had certain kind of control over a particular territory or preferences. So, in a way they almost behaved as monopolistic or oligopolistic companies competing in a very growing but protected segment. But today that protected industry is opening up more and more. We will perhaps already there is decontrol with respect to price, in the sense that prices are now variable over any length of time. So, they go up, they go down, somewhat in consonance with the international price of crude, etc. But we will soon see opening up of pricing freedom, we will soon see more competition coming from the private sector, and as a result, earlier perhaps it was not market segmentation at petrol pump was not so important, because people the petrol pumps really did not care, because they knew the customer did not have much of alternative, but that scenario is going to change. So, many oil and petrochem companies today are focusing a lot on understanding the market dynamics of their customers in India, and we have recently had a long series of sessions with some of these petroleum retailing companies. And this particular chart that you see in front of you is based on kind of international pattern, but a lot of it is quite applicable to the Indian scenario, at least in the urban and semi-urban areas. So, as you can see, first is comes a generation now. These are young people, they are on the go, they like fast food, and there are certain other characteristics are posted there. This kind of customers did not exist maybe 10 years back, or let us say 20 years back, but this is a very fast growing, because now younger and younger people have possession of cars, because they come from affluent families, they can afford to have 2-3 cars. So, young adults today have cars of their own, and these people who may be under 25 or around 25 have a certain kind of consumption pattern. Their patience level is low, and they expect a certain kind of a certain set of facilities without asking for it. Then we have people who are home bakers, housewives, and they are actually doing all the taking their children from one kind of coaching to another kind of coaching, and they do not really care much about the brand and so on. For them, the focus is on convenience. Then we have price shoppers. This category is to emerge, because prices are still one pump to the other pump, prices do not change very much, except we can now see that there are areas, urban areas, where if for example, one may drive from Delhi border area into Haryana, or from UP in Kanpur to Kanpur Dehat, and get some price advantage. And there are some people who will go for that, they will go that extra mile to get that price advantage. This is a very interesting segment, because as the price gets decontrolled more and more, and as competitive pricing freedom is given to retail operations in petroleum, we will see this kind of segmentation will become important. And therefore, and then we are left with these two other segments, road warriors. These are people who are on the road, they are traveling sales people, they are people who are in marketing or different other kinds of field activity oriented jobs, and they travel a lot, and they actually being on the go, they expect not only the core service of buying petroleum, but they would like to get some convenient items like some sandwiches, snacks, etc. available. They may like to get a quick car wash, etc. So, you can see that by understanding the type of consumer, by understanding the core and peripheral preferences of a consumer, one can create a certain value proposition which will be attractive to that segment. This is exactly what we defined in the last session as segmentation and targeting. This is another kind of segmentation. This is a global consumer segmentation, where we look at psychological or psychosocial profiling of customers. So, as you can see in the earlier one, we looked at, in a way, the segmentation was done with respect to sensitivity of customers towards time and the service dimensions desired by the consumer. Whereas here we are looking at the psychosocial profile of the consumers. So, they are strivers, that means they are people who are ambitious, climbing from one economic level to the other economic level. These are young hard working professionals, or we may have people who are like just fun seekers, rich brats maybe, and creatives, people who have interest in not only education, but technology, knowledge and so on. This is not for petrol pump, but there will be other products. For example, if you are retailing music, or for example, if you are in the business of smartphones, or if you are in the business of books and literature, or if you are in the business of newspapers, there also we will need segmentation, and this kind of psychosocial profiling becomes very important there, because many of these items are marketed globally, or at least over a much wider span of market. So, understanding the different profiling of customers become important there to create segmentation. I will end this series of examples with this particular one. This is for a dog food market, a growing market in India, rapidly growing market in India. It is a very mature market in many of the western countries, where people have dog as a companion. People have very small families or no family, and the dog is often a substitute for family. So, as you see here, the segments have been defined as doter, that somebody who dotes on his or her dog, or a loving parent who treats who treat their dog, family dog, as almost part of the family, as another child, or a caring companion. There are many old people where the dog is their companion, and also of course there are very trained dogs for senior citizens or physically visually challenged consumers, where the dog becomes a very important personality in the life of the consumer, and therefore the dog gets that kind of importance in the spending pattern of the consumer. Then of course we have a casual relationship, and then there are owners who are not that they are just indifferent owners. Accordingly, there is some percentage household. This is taken from a US survey, but I will not be surprised if this profiling is quite similar in Bombay or Delhi. And so you can see here, therefore the owner or the consumer who will actually buy the dog food have different kinds of emotional relationship with the dog for whom the food is being purchased, and as a result, the more you go towards the left of this chart, there will be a higher propensity for paying for variety, for paying for features and so on. And the more towards you move towards the this side of the chart, more towards indifference, the thing will be that those customers won't care very much. They, as long as the basic dog food is available, it is fine. But whereas on this side we will have people who will look for variety, will look for various nutritional data, who will look for different kind of tastes, and so there will be number of micro segments possible on this side, whereas there will be just the core product on this side. So, the segmentation, therefore, from these examples you can gather, can give us ideas about the consumers, their psychology, their personality, their likes and dislikes, their demands, their minimum requirements and so on, as a result of which you will be able to package your product, you will be able to propose the values of your product with respect to other products, you will be able to create a differentiated position, and that is an absolutely fundamental aspect of marketing strategy. Let us wrap up now in few steps this discussion on this very important discussion on market segments. So, some of the once we have done this kind of segmentation, say in the dog food market, and if you are a dog food manufacturer or any kind of other pet product manufacturer, you have to ask how many market segments are enough for our ambition. Are we going to focus only on the right side, or are we going to focus on the entire range? That depends on our ambition, our competence, our availability of resources, supply chain, accessibility of different types of market segments, and so on. Then the next question, these are some questions not all related to the dog food one, but they are related to the earlier examples like global consumer or petrol pump and many other way we can look at it, because we have now these important questions. Can one individual be a market segment? Can there be a market segment of one? Can there be a market segment of one family? Now, in the physical world, or like for example, a tailor deals with a market segment of one, because a tailor usually will know his or her customer by name, by choice, by profile. So, the tailor can create a value proposition for one particular customer. But when we look at mass merchandising, earlier this very word of mass merchandising means we were not doing any individualistic treatment. At best, we were looking a value proposition for a particular segment. But now the segments are becoming narrower and narrower, and a company has to deal with more and more and more segments. Obviously, it means that in your product or service offering, you have to create certain kind of a portfolio. So, keeping certain characteristics same, you may do some variation to create different types of offerings. You can see toothpastes, for example. So, we have earlier we only had white toothpaste in a red tube and maybe small, medium, large. Today have maybe 17, 18, 30 different varieties of toothpastes. They come in different colors, they come in different stripes, they come in with different additives like salt or charcoal or neem and other herbal elements and so on and so forth. So, there are large number of small segments catered to by the same toothpaste manufacturer. They have to do it so that they have to protect their flanks, they have to address all the different segments, because a large manufacturer like Unilever or Procter and Gamble would not like to leave any particular segment unaddressed, because through that unaddressed segment they may allow somebody to evolve challenges for all their segments. Next question is, do market segments evolve? A market segment as it exists today, will it change? One obvious answer is that as people age, somebody who is a 25-year-old customer in that example of petrol pump, like the top one generation now as that person grows older, does he or she remain the same, or does he therefore travel from that top segment to the next segment to the next segment, or it is or is it that this personality type determines that a particular customer remains almost the same, exhibits the same characteristics with respect to segmentation. How do customer life cycle affect market segment? This customer's aging, customer's life position, that means today a person is a bachelor free body, tomorrow a young couple, then a young couple with a young family, then a young couple with a graduating family, the children are graduating out of home, a senior couple, and so on. So, this transition through life, does it change our behavior pattern, our purchasing buying pattern, which we should take note of during segmentation. And is the segment of customer same as a group of customer? And lastly, can we develop segments based on just our current customers? That means, is the segmentation strategy valid for today's customers, tomorrow's customers? Do we create our offering in such a way that we are addressing a certain type of customer today, but we will be able to add customer segments as they are evolving, as or as the market is evolving, as our capabilities are evolving, without flouting the fundamental logic or position that we had created during the initial positioning. Now, these 6 questions are for you to think about, and again, if you like to, it's not mandatory, but if you like to, then you can comment on one or all of these questions in the forum, and we would like to see your viewpoints, and we would like you to exchange your views with those of the others attending this course. That kind of thinking on your own is very important for this kind of course to be successful. We have already provided to you enough input, and of course, you can always access internet based search and try to find the answers, and do not hesitate, even if you have a one line answer, or if you want to say a para of thoughts, share a paragraph of thought, please do that. Then on the forum, we will have some perspectives from different sides, and then we can try to put it together. To conclude, criteria for good segment, they are differentiated, identifiable, accessible, appropriate in size, measurable and stable. This is the first slide that we showed today. The market segmentation process may combine creative intuition, insight, as well as good data analytics. So, remember a market segment, as we have discussed earlier during consumer behavior, a market segmentation has to be must be based on logical cognitive reasoning as well as affective emotional clues. I am not sure whether we will have enough time to discuss, but this base of the pyramid, deep interior villages, or people who buy in small quantities, but frequently, this kind of market behavior at the base of the pyramid are creating new types of segmentation, like this whole you can see the shampoo business, for example, has now almost changed to small sachet based segment. Other things like tea or different kind of snacks are today more and more sold through small packages rather than one large package. This is kind of based on the study of purchase behavior at the lower end of the market, lower end in terms of per item spending or per occasion spending. Similarly, segmentation is also there in B2B industrial market, and there are new ideas that are coming up in segmentation, like say mass customization, where you look at a modular construct of the product, and you add or delete stuff or create some additional features, and you can cater to different markets. So, for example, Brook Bond has red label tea, which is a strong Assam tea, and now they have created a new variant where they have added various kind of herbs like cinnamon or clove, etc., and created a tea which has got some Ayurvedic value proposition. So, this is a good example of creating new possibilities by looking at products in a modular sense or in a portfolio sense. And we have asked you a question in the previous slide, and with respect to evolution, with respect to dynamic nature of segmentation, and we would like to hear your opinion on these 6 questions. So, goodbye for today, and tomorrow we will continue from here and proceed towards positioning, proceed towards the strategy that can be implemented from the marketing analysis that you will be doing based on all the earlier lessons. Thank you.